Elusive pieces and stories circulate of lucky individuals stumbling upon one in an old jar of coins or a forgotten roll from the bank. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1966-era Washington quarter dollar, one of the most fascinating and valuable quarters of the mid-20th century. And believe me, you'll want to stick around until the end because the value of these rare errors will absolutely shock you. The year 1966 was a turbulent time for U.S. coinage. Just 1 year prior, in 1965, the United States Mint made a massive change to the nation's coins. Silver had been rising in value, and the cost of producing silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars was quickly outpacing their face value. To fix this, the Mint removed silver from quarters and dimes entirely, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition that's still used today. That's right, 1965 marked the first year that Washington quarters were no longer struck in 90% silver. Instead, the new clad quarters featured a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel, giving them a silvery appearance but without the intrinsic value of silver. By 1966, this transition was in full swing, and the Mint was under enormous pressure to strike millions of these new clad quarters. One of the most dramatic 1966-era Washington quarters is the wrong planchet strike. Imagine a 1966 quarter struck on a leftover silver planchet from 1964. At first glance, it might look just like a normal quarter, but when weighed, the difference is obvious. A clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, while a silver planchet quarter weighs 6.25 grams. This kind of mistake would only have happened in rare cases when leftover silver plankets remained in the machinery during the changeover period. If you happen to find one, you're holding a coin worth well over $10,000 and in pristine condition. Some examples have sold for over $19,000 or even pushing into the $24,000 to $28,000 range. But wrong plankets are just the beginning. Another class of highly collectible 1966-era quarters involves dramatic off-center strikes. Picture a quarter where George Washington's portrait is shifted dramatically to the side, leaving a blank crescent of metal visible on one edge. Off-center errors occur when the blank planchet isn't properly aligned with the dies. The more dramatic the off-center strike, say, 50% or more, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1966 quarter with a major off-center strike can easily be worth hundreds, but when combined with high-grade preservation and dramatic eye appeal, prices soar into the thousands. Auction records help us see just how wild the values can be. In several major numismatic auctions, 1966-era quarters in exceptional grades have shocked bidders and collectors alike. For example, an extremely rare 1966 quarter error sold for close to $19,000, and another even exceeded $24,000, some of the most unique specimens. Combining dramatic errors like multiple strikes or silver transitional plankets have been appraised and valued as high as $28,000. These figures show that the market for these coins is strong, with collectors eager to pay top dollar for true rarities. Grading is also critical when it comes to value. A circulated 1966-era quarter may still be worth hundreds, but in uncirculated or mint state grades, the value multiplies dramatically. Coins graded by PCGS or NGC as MS65 or higher can easily reach into the tens of thousands. For rare transitional silver planchet errors, even circulated examples can break into five figures, while pristine mint state coins approach the $28,000 mark. The 1979 D-era Washington quarter dollar is one of those coins that almost feels like a legend. Imagine holding in your hands what seems like just another quarter, a coin that countless people used to buy gas, groceries, or slip into an arcade machine back in the late 1970s. Only to discover it's worth not just a few cents, not just a few dollars, but tens of thousands. That's the magic of this coin, and tonight we're going to dive into its incredible story. Because while most 1979 D quarters are ordinary pocket change, let's start with the world in 1979. The United States was going through tough economic times, high inflation, gasoline shortages, and a lot of uncertainty. Coins like the Washington quarter were circulating heavily. At the Denver Mint, marked with the D-Mint mark, millions upon millions of quarters were struck to meet the nation's demand for currency. These coins carry the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle design on the reverse, just as they had since 1932. On the surface, nothing seemed extraordinary about these coins. They were made of the typical copper-nickel-clad composition introduced in 1965, an inner core of copper and outer layers of nickel giving them that silvery appearance. So, what makes them so valuable? For one, rarity. In coin collecting, rarity drives value more than almost anything else. When millions of coins exist in perfect, ordinary condition, they aren't exciting. But when only a handful contain an error, suddenly every collector wants one, and demand skyrockets. Among the 1979 D quarters, errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and wrong planchette strikes are the most famous. Each of these errors transforms the coin into something one of a kind. Another dramatic error is the off-center strike. Picture a coin where George Washington's portrait isn't neatly centered but pushed off to the side, leaving part of the planchette blank. The more dramatic the off-center, the higher the value. If you have one where the date is still visible and the strike is 50% off, you could be looking at thousands of dollars. Sometimes up to $10,000 or more just for this error alone. But the real heavy hitters, the ones that reach into that $32,000 to $40,000 range, are coins struck on the wrong planchette. Imagine a quarter that was never meant to be. Instead of being struck on a copper nickel quarter blank, it was struck on a dime planchette, or even more incredible, on a planchette meant for a foreign coin. These wrong planchette errors are so rare that when they surface, collectors go wild. In auctions, they have fetched those astonishing five-figure sums, making them the ultimate prizes for error hunters. Let's not forget about condition. Even among rare errors, condition plays a massive role. A coin graded by PCGS or NGC in mint state condition will always bring a higher price than one that's worn from circulation. A 1979 D-error quarter in mint state with sharp details and a dramatic error is the kind of coin that can hit that $32,000 to $40,000 range we're talking about. Collectors are willing to pay a premium for a coin that not only has the error but also has survived in pristine condition for decades. Auction records prove the incredible value of these coins. A spectacular 1979 D quarter with a major wrong planchette error sold for over $35,000 at auction. Another with a dramatic off-center strike combined with full mint luster fetched close to $32,000. And in private sales, some collectors have paid up to $40,000 for the most eye-popping examples. These aren't just coins, they're pieces of history, factory mistakes that turned into rare treasures. Yes, you heard that right, a single 1990 D-error Washington quarter dollar has shocked collectors and dealers by reaching jaw-dropping values that's life-changing money for what looks like just pocket change. This is not just an ordinary coin, it's a story of rarity, mystery, minting mistakes, and the kind of thrill that keeps treasure hunters and coin collectors searching through rolls of quarters to this day. Stick with me because by the end of this video, exciting coins in modern American numismatics and why you should keep your eyes every time you come across one. The Washington quarter itself has a long and proud history. First struck in 1932 to celebrate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, it quickly became one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. history. For decades, the design featuring Washington's portrait on the obverse and a heraldic eagle on the reverse remained unchanged until the mint started introducing new designs in the late 20th century. But the 1990 D Washington quarter stands at a very strange crossroads in this history. It was part of the regular production run in Denver, yet certain mistakes during minting created error varieties that make this year's coin especially valuable. What was meant to be just another common quarter in the early 1990s became an accidental treasure for a lucky few. The history of how this error came to be is still debated among collectors. Some believe it was simply a mix-up at the mint, where proof dies meant for special collector coins were accidentally used to strike regular circulation quarters. Others think it might have been intentional, either as a test strike or even as an inside job by mint employees. Regardless of how it happened, the end result was a modern coin rarity that collectors can't get enough of. Just knowing that there are only a few of these out there creates a rush of adrenaline for anyone searching through their change. It's the modern-day version of a treasure map. Let's talk about value, because this is where things get even more unbelievable. Regular 1990 D Washington quarters are worth face value if circulated, and maybe $1 or $2 in pristine mint state condition. But when you add the error factor, the close AM, or other rare varieties, suddenly the value skyrockets. At auction, one of these 1990 D-error Washington quarters sold for over $80,000, stunning the coin collecting world. Prices have since ranged between $81,000 and $84,000 depending on condition, with experts predicting that if a flawless, top-graded example comes to market, it could easily push the $90,000 mark or beyond. That means a coin you might overlook in your change could actually be worth more than a luxury car, more than a down payment on a house, and for some people, more than an entire year's salary. For the 1990 D-error Washington quarter dollar, condition is everything. A heavily circulated coin with a close AM error might still fetch tens of thousands of dollars, but if you find one in uncirculated or near-perfect condition, the value multiplies dramatically. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC have authenticated and graded some of these coins, and once encapsulated in their holders, the value is locked in as an undeniable piece of numismatic history. Collectors and investors alike are willing to pay top dollar for such guaranteed authenticity.